Hey, this is Sky. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Saturday night, I'm just chilling in the office. Let's just tell some stories. We haven't done that in a while. I'll tell you about my dad. I don't talk about him too much. I used to go visit him when he was alive. He's been dead for a while. He got murdered in 1991. He's a gangster. I fell out of touch with my dad when I was like, I don't know, 5 years old or something like that, when my parents split up. My dad ended up in prison. He could have done a lot more time, but he got lucky. His crew, they had a lawyer. And he always told me that if I get busted, don't worry, they got lawyers. But he got busted on a shipment of guns. He was running an illegal shipment of guns, and also he had bitten a cop's thumb off in the arrest. My dad was a nut. But that's a whole other story, and I believe I've told that story on here. There's a video all about that, about biting the thumb off. I tell the whole story. But as soon as my dad got out of the joint, he went to New Mexico, and he had spent most of his life up in Northern California, Pacific Northwest. I was born in Seattle, Washington. He has family and grew up in Oregon, in Corvallis, Junction City, that area. Oregon's beautiful. Northern California is real nice. If I ever moved back to California, which I can never really rule that out, I'm happy where I'm at, but I wouldn't do the SoCal thing, man. I'd go up to Northern California and do that. Probably keep me out of trouble. I'm afraid to go back to Southern California. I just get in trouble. But I would stop off on my many trips across country in New Mexico and visit my dad. He ended up on this compound, a couple hundred acres in the hills. And when you have a couple hundred acres in flat land, that's one thing. That's a lot of land. If you have a couple hundred acres in the hills, it feels like it's as far as you can see. They had themselves a compound. Dogs. This one dog was so crazy, I couldn't even go near it. It hated me, and one of the guys was feeding it gunpowder, like out of shotgun shells, sprinkle it in its food, whatever, to make it go crazy. And it was. If it was ever out of its cage or off its chain, it would attack me. It was one of those chow dogs. It was a black dog. Oh, that thing was nuts. It attacked my car, biting the tires of my van. The thing was a psycho dog. And the whole property was full of criminals, guys on the run. And most of the people there were just kind of sleeping in their vehicles or sleeping in the dirt. There was a couple trailers, a small little house. That stuff was all occupied. My dad had a little trailer. Whenever I visited him, I would, go stay with him in his trailer or sleep in my van. There's a big fire pit, and that was kind of like the nightly activity. Everybody would hang out around the fire pit. And it's beautiful out in the mountains of New Mexico. There was this one guy, Rick. He was this fat Mexican dude from, Pasadena? Me and him connected because we were both Southern California boys. I think he was from Pasadena. No, Rosamede. And he was on the run and just out there, and he had been a chef or a cook or some shit like that. So he was making these amazing meals in like tin foil bags, and put stuff in tin foil bags and then put it in the fire and then bust it open, and it would be delicious. And he'd make these meals for everybody just because he liked to cook. So whoever's going to do a store run, he'd load them up with a shopping list, and they'd come back with ingredients, and we'd have, like, I'm not kidding, like gourmet meals just out there by a fire pit in the middle of the fucking mountains of New Mexico. My dad and his friends did a lot of drugs and drank a lot of beer, and it would get pretty rowdy. And I got pretty sick of that shit. Usually I would just bounce out of town, but if I was there for a couple days or there for a reason, it would get annoying to be around these guys. They were a little too hardcore for me. So Rick kind of noticed that, and I was there with my girlfriend. We were engaged at that point. I think it was before we broke up. And that's a whole nother video I tell on here. Oh, I tell my whole life. I got some funny stories. And he was like, why don't you come with me for the night? I got some people I want to go see, some business I got to go do. He's like, you got that van, you drive, and we'll just get out of here. I know you're kind of getting annoyed with all these dudes. He could kind of sense it. And I guess I don't hide my shit well. When I'm annoyed, you can tell. So that sounded like a good plan, and my girl was definitely into that. She was like, yeah, let's go do something fun. He took us, the first stop we went and bought a bunch of Coke. The second stop we went to was a nightclub, all Mexican nightclub. Cowboy hats and cowboy boots, and they were doing like, you know, dancing, line dancing and all kinds of stuff, and it was all Mexican music, and that was an interesting scene. I had fun there. We drank and just hung out in the club. And then he was like, let's go up to the mountains and see my uncle. He's got a big piece of property. He owns hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of acres, and he's a cattle rancher. And there was a large, like, corporate cattle ranch, giant cattle ranch there, and he's like, we drove by it, and he's like, my uncle owns that. I don't know if he's lying or not, but he said his uncle owned it, so we drive way up into the hills to his uncle's house, and I'm in my van, and it's nighttime, and we're going up this windy dirt road, and it's not no four-wheel drive pickup truck, and I'm like, dude, this is a dirt road. I'm in a van. I don't have off-road tires on this thing. We finally get to the top of the hill, and the house was like one story, but it kind of went on forever. And it started off as like a normal, maybe 3-bedroom, 2-bath, single-story home. And then he just kept building onto it. And he didn't build any other levels, he just kept building additions. He must have had 17 or fucking 20 additions. I'm not even kidding. We go in there and hang out with the guy, and he's a little Mexican guy, doesn't speak a word of English. Successful dude, old guy. He was there alone, and I don't know if his wife had died or everybody was on vacation and he's just there by himself, but we hung out, and Rick had a little reunion with his uncle, and we all got drunk and smoked weed. I took a little tour of the house, and it was just creepy. I mean, it was nice. It wasn't like a haunted house or anything, but it creeped the fuck out of me because the way that he built the rooms, he would just build one room onto another. So you'd walk out of the living room into a bedroom, and then that bedroom would have a door, and that would go into another room. Like it could just be another bedroom or an office or whatever. And then you walk into that room, and there's like another door going in a different direction, and you go into another room. And it literally goes like a maze like that. You get lost. I was like, man, this is the weirdest fucking house. You had no rhyme or reason when you did this shit. But to him, it was like a mansion. And it's getting later. And I was like, all right, let's head back down to the property where my dad's place is. And he's like, fuck that. Rick said, no, let's just sleep up here. This will be fine. We had a big dinner. I picked one of the rooms, wandered through. I didn't want to go too far. I went like 4 or 5 rooms in. He told me that his uncle sleepwalks. So if you see him sleepwalking through the rooms, don't worry. He's not going to hurt you or nothing. Don't fuck with him. Just let him do his thing. And he'll just sleepwalk through the rooms, wind his way. So that's kind of why I figured, let's go a few rooms in. Maybe he won't come into this room. And I never saw him. I tried to get some sex with my girlfriend that night, and she didn't want to. She was just like, hey, it's too weird. This place is too weird. What if the old man walks in? And I was like, well, then he's going to see some stuff. He's asleep anyways. He won't notice. And then the next day we drove back down to the compound. And it's just more of the same. Heavy drugs, delusional conversations about this guy or that guy being a snitch and killing them. Constant conversation about killing potential snitches. And that's usually when I would bounce. I'd be like, okay, see you, Dad. Thanks for watching.